My name is Margot Levine, and if you're hearing my voice now, it means the world finally knows the truth. For years, I was invisible, the quiet one in the corner, the one who came in early, stayed late, and did the work no one else wanted to touch. People at my office used to joke, Margot must sleep under her desk. And sometimes, I really felt like I did. I wasn't flashy, I wasn't loud, I wasn't the type who elbowed her way into the spotlight. I just did my job. That's what my parents taught me growing up. Work hard. Keep your head down. Good things come to those who wait. But what they never warned me about was this. When you're quiet, when you keep your head down, sometimes people mistake it for weakness. And weak people? They make the perfect scapegoats. It happened so fast I can still hear the echo of my footsteps walking into the boardroom that morning. My heels clicking against the polished floor, my coffee cooling in my trembling hand. I didn't know why I'd been called up. My boss hadn't given me a reason, and that silence filled me with dread. When I opened the door, every executive was already seated. The air was heavy. Their eyes pierced through me. And there at the head of the long glass table was Richard Hale, CEO, billionaire golden boy, the kind of man magazines put on covers and called a genius. He leaned back in his chair, hands folded like a king about to hand down judgment. Margot, he said, his voice smooth, calm, practiced. We've discovered some irregularities. I felt my stomach knot. He continued, each word a dagger. It appears you've been embezzling funds from this company, to the tune of $2,367,412. The words crashed over me like an avalanche. What? No, that's not possible. I would never. But he cut me off with a sigh, heavy with false disappointment. We trusted you, and you betrayed us. Gasps. Murmurs. I remember the sound of pens clattering against the table as board members exchanged horrified looks. I wanted to scream, to rip apart the accusation. But my throat had closed, my hands shaking so violently I nearly dropped my coffee. I managed to stammer, You're wrong, I swear. But the security guards were already at the door. And in that moment, I realized the truth. Richard had already decided my fate. Underscore 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 underscore. Security escorted me through the office like a criminal. Coworkers stared. Some whispered. Some turned away. A few smirked, almost relieved it wasn't them. My cheeks burned with humiliation. My entire career, my reputation, destroyed in less than 10 minutes. By the time I got home, I was numb. I sat on my apartment floor surrounded by bills, papers, pay stubs, my life reduced to clutter. Rent was due. My savings were gone. My phone buzzed with news alerts. Local CEO uncovers massive embezzlement by longtime employee. My name plastered everywhere. Who would hire me now? Who would believe me? That night, I cried until my body felt empty. My chest ached, my eyes swollen, my throat raw. At one point, I caught myself whispering into the darkness. Maybe it'd be easier if I just disappeared. But then, something shifted. I replayed Richard's face in that boardroom. The smug curve of his mouth, the satisfaction glittering in his eyes. He enjoyed this. He wanted me ruined. And suddenly I knew. This wasn't about me. This was never about me. Richard needed a scapegoat. Someone quiet, forgettable. Someone no one would defend. He thought he'd chosen the perfect victim. But he underestimated me. Underscore 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 underscore. The next weeks were a blur of obsession. I barely slept. I barely ate. My kitchen table became a war room, buried under piles of old financial reports I had saved over the years. Most people keep family photo albums.
Me?
I kept spreadsheets. Hours turned into days, my eyes burning from staring at numbers, my fingers cramped from scribbling notes. Piece by piece, the puzzle came together. The missing money didn't lead to me. It led offshore. Transfers disguised through shell companies. Accounts in the Cayman Islands, Switzerland. And at the center of it all, Richard Hale. But suspicion wasn't proof. I needed evidence no one could deny. That's when fate intervened. An email pinged in my inbox from a name I hadn't seen in years. Daniel Whitaker. He used to work in finance at the company until he left abruptly, claiming creative differences with Richard. He had heard what happened to me, and his message was simple. You're not alone. I know what he did. Let's talk. We met at a dingy diner on the edge of town. Daniel looked older, tired, but his eyes burned with the same anger I felt. He slid a folder across the table. He did the same to me, he whispered. Not as bad, but enough to push me out. I kept copies. Inside were emails, internal memos, red flag transactions. My hands shook as I flipped through them. And then came another miracle. A soft-spoken accountant from inside the company reached out, Michael. He was terrified, his voice quivering when we met at a coffee shop. He slid a USB drive across the table, like it was a live grenade. I can't do this anymore, he said. I've seen too much. He'll ruin me if he finds out. But maybe you can stop him. On that drive was gold. Financial logs. Hidden accounts. And most damning of all, a recording. Richard's voice, cocky and careless, chuckling to someone over drinks. She'll take the fall. No one will ever suspect the quiet one. She's perfect. I listened to that clip over and over, each time my rage growing.
He thought he'd buried me.
Instead, he handed me the shovel to dig his grave. Underscore, 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 underscore. When the trial began, I walked into the courthouse with my heart pounding so loudly, I thought everyone could hear it. Richard arrived like a king entering his castle. Tailored suit, gleaming watch, lawyers in tow. He smiled at me, a condescending tilt of his head, like he was already savoring his victory. But this time, I wasn't the weak one. As the prosecution laid out our evidence, Richard's mask began to crack. First came the paper trail, clean, undeniable, each number tying back to him. Then Daniel's testimony, followed by Michael's reluctant but powerful words. And then came the moment, the recording. Richard's voice filled the courtroom. She'll take the fall. No one will ever suspect the quiet one. The jury gasped. The judge's eyebrows shot up. Even Richard's own lawyers looked rattled. And Richard? For the first time, he didn't look smug. He looked pale.
Small. Exposed.
The judge's gavel slammed down. Margot Levine is hereby cleared of all charges. Richard Hale is found guilty of corporate fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. I exhaled, my knees nearly buckling. Tears blurred my vision. Richard was led away in handcuffs, shouting, sputtering, his empire collapsing. And me? I walked out of that courthouse free. Not just free from the false charges. Free from the belief that being quiet meant being powerless. Because sometimes, the quiet ones carry the loudest truth. And when they finally speak, the world has no choice but to listen.